You are listening to the Hello Sport Podcast.
All right, welcome back to All Talk with Hello Sport, coming to you on SEN. Joining us this week, very privileged to have him in studio and in the red-hot red chair, the one and only Joel Caine. How are you, sir? Thank you for coming in.
Hello, gentlemen. You're in the blue chairs.
Yes.
Now, I need to ask this. Are you specific right-sided and left-sided players? You always in the left chair?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. You got to have your seat.
Yeah.
You got to have your seat, much like you got to have your spot in the bed.
Yes.
This is our bed. This is our bedroom,
Yes.
as it were. So we like to keep it very, very much the same. I'm always on the right. Doesn't matter where we go. I'm generally always on the right.
Love it.
Yeah, I'd say so.
But not always. But most of the time.
Yeah.
It's funny. I think over the years, though, we've chopped and changed sides. But now that we're in here, this is what's comfortable. This is what works for us. In fact, I almost guarantee I was on that side at one stage. Anyway, riveting. So we were just, we were talking just before you came on here, and now obviously there's plenty to get to, but you are aware of our attempts to run a marathon. You said that you yourself have run a marathon.
Yes.
I'd like to know your secrets because we're struggling.
Firstly, preparation is everything, which I didn't do. And this was about, actually, when I did it, you remember the great game the West Tigers take on the Roosters, that famous semi-final?
You were there.
I was there.
Oh, you were there?
I was there, yeah.
So I was also there that night, and my mates had booked accommodation in town so we could wake up in town. So we're down the Cronulla way, wake up in town, jump on the train, bang, let's get into this marathon. And we actually decided to do it off a 5-week preparation. Admittedly, that's a lot of kilos to go for me, right? So I was a lot lighter, wasn't fit, but I'm very excited for you blokes to do. I'm actually enrolled for the half marathon.
You might see me dropping down from a full to a half, Joel.
I'm thinking about dropping down from the half to the 10. But boys, I tell you, that was the night. So I wanted to get away early, and that game, of course, goes to extra time. And you're so hyped up about it, so I couldn't sleep. Got out for the run, and first 35 Ks, I'm absolutely doing it easy. Like, mind you, we're not breaking any records, but
First 35 Ks is basically the whole marathon.
well, no, that's what you think. So that's what I thought.
Yeah.
And I thought, so we're coming back up past Oxford Street, and they've got all these drinks ready to go, and there's 7 Ks to go, and I've knocked over 35, and I'm thinking, this is easy. So then the snipers come in. Bang, 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 bang. So have you done a marathon or a half before?
Mate, I've ran 15 Ks yesterday. It's
I
the
did
furthest
20.
I've ever
I
run.
did
Really?
Yeah.
I did 27 the other day, so I'm preparing the right way.
Oh, you're home. If you've
No,
done
yeah,
that.
yeah. I'm in big trouble. My knees are fucked.
Yeah, the get the salt tablets. You're going to need those. That's a good clue. But so what happens when you do these runs? Have you done one of those professional runs before though?
No, I haven't. No.
Oh, you haven't? Never?
No,
Never?
no.
Wow. So they have these 1 kilometre signs.
Every 1 kilometre?
Yes, and they're just ticking over, right? So they're just at the start. You feel like you're seeing one every 5 minutes. Tick, 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 tick. And then I got to that 35K mark, and the snipers went bang, 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 and every kilometre felt 5 kilometres apart. I swear I felt that, and I hope you don't go through this yourself, but I reckon the last 7 kilometres was twice as hard, 3 times as hard as the first 35. It was brutal.
Did you have any injuries or anything? Like, obviously you're a
No.
former athlete, but like, was there anything? Was it how far was that run after you'd retired from?
Yeah, so it's probably a good 4 or 5 years, but I was lucky to have no major injuries.
Okay.
But I remember I was sort of struggling a little bit, but still on top of it. And I run into this bloke on his own who's about to walk, right, or just starts to walk. I said, mate, come on, let's go. And then we get chatting. I get him going for about 500 metres. And he's an English bloke. And I said, what's your motivation for this? Come on, we're nearly there. I said, I need you as much as you need me. He said, my mate passed away, and we always promised we'd run this run together. I said, well, I'm going to be your mate today. We're going to get home together. So we grafted out together for the next final 6 of the 7 Ks. And then there's 500 metres to go, and I've carried this bloke over the line. And then he just fucking puts the bullet down, takes off. I've never seen him again. I never ever saw him again in my life.
What a cheeky
And I was
bug.
so pissed off at him. But I'll never forget, Ray Hadley gave me my first call of a full game, which was reserve grade, right? And it was Wentworthville Magpies taking on the Western Suburbs Magpies. But I had to be there at a certain time. And because I was behind my time, I had to sprint, like finish the half marathon, then literally keep running another 2Ks so I could get back to Leichhardt Oval.
Oh, my God.
To call my very first game, which was reserve grade. And the problem was I was so delusional, and both teams were black and white Magpies. I had no idea what was going on. But anyway.
So you finished your marathon, ran back to get out and call the footy.
I could hardly climb the stairs at Leichhardt Oval and called my first ever game. And they're both black and white. I didn't know what was going on.
Oh, great.
You say the last 7Ks was long. What was the last 2Ks like after the marathon?
Well, now I'm on the clock, right? So I've just got to get there.
Yeah.
And you can't get it. It's so busy, so you can't get it. There was no Ubers back in those days.
No.
So 2010 it would have been, yeah.
So your career's been interesting, right? Because obviously you had a professional athlete career, which is already a great achievement in of itself. But you're bigger now than you ever were even playing, right?
What physically? I actually am. I'm at a career high
column
weight.
A, column B. What's, I guess, what we'll get to your career, your footy career, but like when did you, was the career in media always a goal after you retired?
You know, it was funny. Like I never, I loved the horse racing, and I think I fell in love with horse racing because of the callers. You know, Ian Craig and Greg Miles, and I remember we moved around a heap. So I was the eldest of 6, mum and dad scrappers who, you know, together at 16, and when they were on the sauce, I think they deeply loved each other, but otherwise it was a very manic household, you know. It was just, I think it was a manic household because it was such a struggle. So for mum and dad, it was either have another kid or move towns. So I went to 9 schools.
Oh, 9.
9 schools and never got to year 12, right?
Wow.
So people come up to me and they say, oh, Joel, I went to school with you. And I'm like, where's the roulette wheel? You know, like it's very hard for me to remember when you're only at every school for 2 or 3 years at the most. So I remember this one school, Newbridge, and we lived in a town. This was one of the moves. So as I said, mum and dad either had another kid or moved town. So we end up at a pub, Newbridge, which they buy, the Gladstone Hotel, town of 85 people. The school there had 12 people, and half of them were us, our family, you know. And you could literally go to school, do your work, because there was one teacher for all the classes, do your work. As soon as you do your work, you go home. So me and a mate would get there at 6 o'clock. The teacher would leave the doors open for us. We'd knock it over by 9, and then we'd muck around on the railways. But I vividly remember in 1991, I had the whole school, which is the 12 of us, mapped out in a handicap, and I had a big orange witch's hat, and I called the Melbourne Cup. So my sister was the youngest in the school in kindergarten, and she had to run 100 metres, whereas my other brother, second brother, he was probably the fastest in the school, so he had to run the 400, and I called the Melbourne Cup. So I had this fascination of doing weird shit, you know, like I'd be driving a car and I'd be calling the Melbourne Cup or calling the grand final, or so in many ways I wanted to do that more than play.
Right.
Yeah.
How did calling seems to me like a very, very difficult thing to do. Do you need to essentially practice in the mirror? Like, how do you sort of work at your craft to get it to a point where you can call, you know, a reserve game?
We tried to call once.
We did. We tried to call at a mate's house around the corner, and it was
over within 5 minutes.
We just looked at each other and were like,
no,
this isn't working.
You know what it is? Like, and I've got a lot of improvement still to come, but Ray Hadley once told me, with relation to being the caller, not so much a sideline eye or a co-caller, he said, it's not really something you can train for. You've got to be able to think something and have it off your lips straight away. And that's, you've either got that or you haven't got it. And I reckon a lot of that is that sort of rehearsing as a kid and stuff like that 10,000 hours as people talk about. But yeah, that's what he said. But how it became of me, and I used to love Hadley, you know, like I still do, I would grand finals or Origin, I'm very audio. So I'd lay in bed and listen to him calling the grand final or the Origin, you know, and it would get me. But how it come to working with him, I was working for community radio station, Hawkesbury Radio, and we're in a box at Penrith, and Broncos were playing the Panthers, and the all-conquering continuous call team next to me, they're calling the big game. So we would have had 2 listeners, and that would have been it. They would have had however many, right? Yeah. And I thought to myself, it's time to attack. So Hadley comes out, and I've waited an hour outside the door, and I thought, how am I going to do this? And I recorded some of the game that I'd called, and I said, everyone's got 10 seconds, right? So I said, as soon as you come out, Ray, have you got 10 seconds? And he was sort of a bit rattled. He said, yeah, no worries, And I'll never forget, I pressed play on this tape, and it was the worst time to press play. It was so corny. So Sam Thaiday crashes over for the Broncos to score a try. Yeah. And I've said, thank God it's Thaiday, And it was it was just very corny.
Yeah.
But he listened to the tape, which I felt for half an hour. It was probably 30 seconds, and Blockers over his shoulder sort of nodding. And then he stops the tape. He said, I'll call you tomorrow at 5:30. Have your phone on, right? So I said, okay. So I'm up at 4:30. I'm gargling and trying to make out as if I'd always get up at this time.
Yeah. Just got back from a jog.
And he calls me at 5:30 on the dot, right? And he's talking about it. In fact, the other embarrassing thing I did was, so I've done my job. I'm going to have this chat with Hadley, so I don't have to say any more. And I'm on the top of the stairs at Panthers. Those red seats are there. And he's made his way down to the bottom with Blocker. And I'm still at the top. Job done. He's going to call me tomorrow. And I yell out, hey, Ray. He goes, yeah, mate. I said, and by the way, in 20 years, I've not touched the set, not touched the dial. He goes, righto, champ. And off he goes. But he did ring me.
Yeah, and if he didn't call you the next day, you know why.
Yeah, that's right. I nearly butchered it. But, it was a great experience, yeah.
What's like, that's quite a, taking your own future into your hands sort of a moment there. Yeah. Have you always had that in you? Like, what was the impetus for going, fuck it, I'm just going to hit him with this?
Yeah, I think... Like one thing, and this relates to now. So I remember Peter Overton, and this is a story, but it'll tie back to the same thing. He came in before Origin one night, and he said, do you mind if I sit in here for you doing your cross? I said, yeah, that's okay. Why? He said, I've just heard you do it live and you don't use an auto cue. He said, why do you do that? And I said, well, I don't like an auto cue. I'm not very good at scripted stuff. And the other thing is that, Pete, if I stuff this up, right, it's different for him. He's doing the news, It's real bloody heavy subjects which you got to nail. I said, if I stuff this up, right, and I don't know how many people watch the Origin, there's a couple of million, whatever it is. What would happen is that people would instantly get on their social media and go, Caine's a dickhead and flog and whatever else, and I still get that anyway. But the moment that they've sent that, and this is what my dad was talking to me about, he said, the moment they've sent that, everyone's so busy in their own life, so consumed about what's happening in their world, their kids' world, their partner's world. So if you're thinking, and this is everyone, it's not selfish, it's just how we are. If you're thinking 95% of the time about yourself, that means there's 5% for the rest of the world. And it's not really my business to worry about what people think about me. That's their business, So the moral of the story was that if you stuff up, it's not really, no one gives a shit. Everyone's so consumed about themselves, so just go and attack, And I've always sort of lived by that now, that it's just like never be worried about what people think, because they're actually not thinking about you. The moment they bag you, whatever, their life's gone on. And so many people get held down, ransom to people's comments when they might be potting everyone, And they might be the ones who need a cuddle.
Yeah.
It's like after you have a big night and you're laying in bed and you're anxious about the conversations you had. But it's funny because everyone's laying in bed thinking about the conversations they had. You know what I mean? Like the things that they said. No one's thinking about what anyone else said.
No one remembers what you said.
100%.
Well, you hope they don't, do you?
No, that's true.
Or you're checking your phone. Did I message them? Shit.
Jesus.
We sometimes when we were late at night when we were living in Bathurst together, we'd get up like great calls that we love. Greg Myers got a good one with Lonhro, I think, when it was the 2004 Australian Cup, something like that. Dennis Cometti with the 4x100. Is there any of those that stand out for you most?
Yeah, if you look up the Black Caviar, I just love Greg Miles, And if you look up Black Caviar's 25 wins, he says, so he's running out of things to say for this great horse. Just keeps winning and winning in the same fashion by an absolute postcode. But this one particular race in my hair stand up Moonee Valley, he says, have a look at this brutal power wrapped in an elegant machine.
Wow.
And I just love that call. And other calls like, American, you got to have something on the finish line. American is coming away. An American, named American, but it's actually a French horse. American coming away as it hits the line, Très bien. Stuff like that. Yeah.
Do you go into calls with things prepared? Never?
No.
What if there was like something momentous was coming up, like a milestone of sorts that you could probably speak to?
Yeah, probably should. I never have, but in saying that, I've never had the real big stage. Like Rabs, for example, very, very sad that passing of Paul Green, recently. And when you watch that grand final, for Rabs to nail that moment, and not just the moment of the field goal, but it's hit the steelworks. What else could this grand final provide? And when Thurston kicks the field goal and he says...
the champion becomes a legend.
No, that's like Greg Miles, but he says a captain to a legend and probably rugby league immortality.
That's right.
To nail that at the time, it's bloody huge, right?
Yes, yes.
It was special. Champion becomes a legend is when Maccabi Devos won 3 in a row.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Have you called horses, or is it just footy that you've called?
No, I've never called. I've never called horses. I don't know if I'll have the opportunity to. I'm just so far down the pitch doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
But
was it ever something you were looking into, or is it just always the footy?
No, more so. More so than footy, yeah.
Yeah, right.
And I don't know. My parents never really punted or anything like that, but I just find it so fascinating what they do, and it's, I don't know. It's like I'm very excited now. The weather's back. For me, it's the best time of year. Spring's just about upon us, and I've lost a bit of love for racing, but not when it comes to the big races, and Melbourne Cup Day I get way too consumed. It's a favourite day in my world. I can't wait till my youngest is 18. I've got 4 kids. We're going to all go down to the Melbourne Cup.
Yeah.
But the answer, I have never
No,
called.
you haven't.
Yeah.
Do you think you'd be able to?
Yeah. Oh, not a problem.
Yeah.
Would I be very good at it? I don't know. It would take time, but no problem identifying the colours. And I've done it a million times myself, so I don't have a problem with any of that. But you know what? When we're retired, I'd love to have a crack just for 10 years or something. It's a hard seat to get into, though. It's not a seat that moves too often.
Okay.
Yeah. What's the best advice you've been given when it comes to calling?
So Hadley gave me my first opportunity to call NRL game, but it was only half a game. He did this thing called a dual call. Now, the best advice he's probably given me is there's a few things, like radio-wise, give him the score. Just keep giving the score. You cannot give the score too much. And I get frustrated now when you get into a car and you just want to hear the score.
Yeah,
definitely. You're not really 100%. Consumed about the big theatrics and the stories. And just give me the score, right? So Hadley's big on that, and I love that. Hadley would also say, paint the picture as if you're speaking to a blind person, which he got from John Brennan. So that's another thing, where are they on the field? Who's got the ball? Don't always assume that just because you know all the players' names. Ola Kawatu for Manly, he's got it 20 metres out. So not everyone knows Ola Kawatu, and I know you blokes are mad Manly supporters, but not everyone knows that Sipley's a Manly player or whatever. So say who's got the ball. But Rabs, so Hadley's given me a chance to call my first ever NRL game, which is half a game of dual call. And I'm at Brookvale, and there's a little bathroom halfway down the stairs, for where the media sort of share one bathroom.
One of the great shitholes the Manly City's media area.
One of the great dunnies?
Yeah. Well, no, the dunnies are probably nicer than the commentary boxes.
So I'm there to call half a game. Manly, and I can't even remember who. Newcastle might have been the other team. And I've come back from the bathroom as Rabs is. Now, because I'm doing a dual call, I'm only calling the second half of that game. So what's going to happen is Hadley's calling the first game for its entirety, and then they'll cross to me if it's a decent game for the second half. So I'm needing it to be a decent game. And I run into Rabs, and Rabs says, mate, I heard you get your first call today. Congratulations. I said, oh, mate, well, I got you any advice? He said, yes, mate. He said, be governed by the crowd. If the crowd's up, you're up. If they're not, don't be a lunatic. and I said, anything else? And he said, it always helps to be in the box when the game starts, champion. And because the game's about to start in 60 seconds' time. But for me, I don't need to be there for another hour or so,
Oh, right. It's like,
yeah, so if they're up, you're up. If they're not, don't be a lunatic, Rabs said.
He's great, Rabs. Yeah. He's awesome.
Well, look, nice advice by the great.
Isn't it? Now you're also, so obviously you've got the comedy side of things, but you you host the Run Home with you and Fletch. Yeah. In that space, you need to be able to have an opinion as well as,
Yeah.
How do you go about, I guess, walking the balance of giving your opinion, not wanting to be too harsh or not harsh enough? How do you find that whole experience?
It is uncomfortable at times because quite often a lot of people, and I've probably been a bit harsh on the Tigers this year, but the older you get...
Why is that?
the older you get and further removed from... players find it very hard because they know so many people and... So I've just got to an age, I suppose, where just want to say what I think.
Yeah.
You know, and speaking about Bearshead, I know he was in here. He is such a talent. You know, and for he's loving the radio. And what we've decided to do, and I was telling you boys before this, we literally get on air, and occasionally Fletch will say, "Oh, Brooksy, let's set this up," or "Let's set this up," and he does a lot more of that stuff than me, because that's what he's bloody good at, you know, and such a funny bugger. But for me, I'll literally get on generally 3 minutes before we start to look at the rundown that they've presented. And the reason we've done that, when we first got together at SEN, all the photos, you know, Matty Johns and Vossi and Jimmy Smith and, you know, Matty White and all these, we've all got very different shows. And Fletch and I just ducked off and had about 4 schooners at the pub. And we're having probably our second or third schooner. And I said, this is what our show needs to be. AM radio for sport has been copy-paste, you know, like 1,000 interviews, which a lot are as boring as batshit, right? Wallpaper, you know?
Yeah.
1,000 interviews, come up with a contrived topic, and then people want to, and then it's been the copy-paste job. And I said, Fletch, let's just, and because he's such a talent, let's just try and blank camp. Look, when you go to a pub, you don't have a 4-hour setup, you know, as to what you're going to talk about. Let's just get in here and talk. Yeah. Let the conversation goes where it goes. The listeners chime in the back line, and let's just go. And it just seems to work better for us, I think. And we're slowly but surely getting there, but makes it easy. He's just so fun to work with.
He's very funny. It sounds like that's sort of the approach we definitely have in the podcast world, right?
It's exactly the same.
Where it seems like if you were to go over the things you want to talk about before you then talk about it on radio, it's like the real reactions have already been had and it's not fresh anymore. So it's like just to be able to go in there, know what you're going to talk about and know that you've got your opinions and Fletch will have his, but then just be able to sort of let it rip. Certainly lends itself to a more, I think, an authentic conversation as well as just like for the listener.
Well, sometimes Tom and I won't even talk to each other. We'll just come in and we'll just go, we'll save it. Save it.
Yeah, the podcast has ruined our friendship. We don't speak outside of it. We just come in here and talk about it. We can't see each other on weekends.
And then because we've talked for 3 hours, there's not much else to talk about. So we just sort of walk around in silence.
Yeah, play pool.
Nice shot, mate. You know what I mean?
But yeah, Fletch, it must be fun working with someone like Fletch who, even though he is, like everyone knows he's funny, I almost don't think he's given enough credit for how funny he is. Like he just seems to be like naturally just hilarious.
Yeah, and you know what he is too? He's a fucking great bloke. He's a seriously champion bloke. He's just, I don't know, like I had probably apprehensions, and he shared the Shervo story on your podcast, you know, and I thought, geez, this is an unusual matchup, Fletch and I. But I've decided, you know what, I'm going to be the chameleon here, and the strength of this show is not me. He's the strength of this show, so I'm going to play my part to get the best out of him. You know, and the more the spotlight's on him, I'm just pulling it all together, and we're going here and we're going there, and I'll stoke the fire here. But at the end of the day, he's the show, in my opinion.
I agree with that in part, but I think that for him to be able to be who he, like the best version of himself, there needs to be someone who plays it a little bit straighter. And not even straight, because you can also have a laugh as well. But like, if for someone who maybe wasn't prepared to play that role, or at least wasn't even maybe perceptive enough to see that it was necessary to have that to make the show the best thing that it was, then it could be a shit show. Yeah. So I actually think that you're being a little harsh on yourself there.
Maybe, but I've got to. He's been great for me to look at it differently. Like I can be an analytical type and go to that, but it's, I've sort of learned it's fucking boring, you know. Like it's by the time we come on, all the heavy stuff's been spoken of. If you don't know the news, and if you're a devotee to SEN, if you don't know the big news by the time we've come on, then you just, where have you been? You know?
What are you doing?
Yeah.
You've been sleeping all day.
Yeah. So I'd rather know about, rather know about his day, or just pub chat, you know?
You're now I'd say you're the face of Sportsbet as far as, definitely. I think that's fair to say. How'd that whole role start? And it feels like it was something that has grown for you, or that like you've grown into, you know? How'd that come about?
How that started was I went to a function. I was just an ex-player and went to a function. Matty Tripp, who was then the owner of Sportsbet, he was at a luncheon, and they had bought an asset. Remember 1HD? Channel 10 sort
Yes.
of.
Yeah.
Their sports
That
channel?
sport?
Yes.
Is it their sports channel?
And then it was like half sport, and then it went.
Then now
half
it's-
nothing.
Now maybe it's like 10 peach, which just has our neighbours rerun.
So they had bought an asset there, which when I say that, they bought a spot there as Sportsbet. So they needed somebody, a talking head, to go there and promote that. And they hadn't had anyone. And I'd met these guys at this luncheon. And then out of the blue, they said, look, I was telling a few stories at the luncheon, and they said, can you go and do that? So that started then. And then that was sort of just going quiet for a while. And I'll never forget Barney Evans, who's now the CEO at Sportsbet. Sportsbet, up until that point, was a very Melbourne, Victorian sort of centric business, because that's where everyone lived, and up there, Kazali's the number one sport down there.
Yeah.
And, it was just... And Barney Evans, who's now the CEO, and I just rate the bloke so highly, he's a great bloke and very, very good and sharp at his job. He comes up to Sydney just to come and catch up with the Sydney staff, and he's having coffees and luncheons, and he says, let's go for a coffee. So we go for a coffee at George Gregan's, I don't know if it's still there, but Pitt Street Mall, and we're talking about things, and what are your views? I said, I think we're very Melbourne-centric, and, the population of Victoria, and, compared to New South Wales and Queensland, I think there's bigger opportunity for growth in New South Wales and Queensland. So we sit down, having a coffee, and I hand him the paper. And I said, just start from the back and tell me when you hit an AFL article. And fortunately for me, it was just one of those record-breaking days where it was just an NRL-thon, Every page was NRL, NRL, NRL. And so he said, no, say no more. I know what needs to be done. So within about a year or two, next thing you know, Sportsbet are putting their hand up to get the rights for the NRL. And what had happened, I don't know if you remember, but it was quite turbulent around Tommy Waterhouse at the time.
Is this when he was doing all the
He was like walking onto the field in all of his ads and shit. And it was,
Is that what you're referring to? That
yes.
sort of thing?
Yeah. And I think part of that was, it is the Australian way, tall poppiness,
Yes.
Like a lot of the Aussies can't really relate to being Tom Waterhouse. So there was this real issue around, okay, where's all this placed? So I thought to myself and the marketing team, I said, well, let's just scale it right back. No suits and ties, and we slowly got away from that. No auto cues, and no other sport. Like, people are watching sport, so let's try and steer away from before a game talking about horse racing or talking about. Let's just go real rugby league, real knockabout. Don't have to be perfect. No script. Let's just go. And then all of a sudden it went quiet. So he was getting smashed all the time. So I think the NRL may have been relieved that the noise around all this sort of went a bit quiet. But that's basically how that all started.
So, and then, what would your role be at Sportsbet? Do you have like a title?
I'd be like a brand ambassador, I suppose, yeah.
Because it seems like you're quite heavily involved then in the decision, quite a successful decision.
Well, I wouldn't say I was heavily involved. I was an idea, and then
that newspaper thing sounds like a pretty...
I reckon that's pretty bloody cluey.
Yeah.
And so how many, are you a sort of a one-take operator, do you reckon? You come in, rip through it, nail it?
I'd say so, yeah. I'd say so. Mostly. I think it's better to be imperfect and just get it done, and it's more real, I think.
Yeah.
So, yes, maybe a one-take wonder, but not perfect, you know what I mean?
Have you had any hairy moments either commentating or doing the Sportsbet thing where something's gone wrong?
The answer would be yes, but I'm just trying to... I'll have to come back to you on that.
Okay,
it definitely would be yes.
It would be.
Yeah.
Well, let's move to your footy career then. When you were younger, you spoke about how you were, the commentary almost was the main thing. How early were you identified as a talent? How early did you know you were good at footy? What's your earliest experiences with rugby league?
So my very first grand final was, as I said, we went to so many towns, was playing for the Penrith Waratahs. So we just lived just around the corner from Panther Stadium. And again, my parents weren't into rugby league at all, but I fell in love with it. I don't know why. And started there, first grand final against Mount Druitt, and then just away we went. But I was always a try scorer from the get-go, from the absolute get-go. But I just love. I was sick for it. I'd be every single day. I would be down the park with a ball, kicking the ball every single day.
Did you have any? You had a brother who played as well, right?
Two other brothers played first grade.
Both played first grade.
Yeah.
So And you were the oldest. Usually they say it's like the youngest of the brothers who's like the best because
which was true.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
So who? I mean, forgive me. I'm not across your brothers. I know that I knew one played for Cronulla. I didn't know that two of them did.
Yeah, I talked story on both of them. Both of them were far better than me. Tony was this kid who didn't make many rep teams. He was the player of the tournament at a New South Wales carnival. Never made the side. He was just a grafting player. Everything was in front of him. And this is a good story for Nathan Brown, the coach. So what had happened was Tony had about 8 clubs after him at the age of 18. He was probably the most sought after 18-year-old at the time. Yeah.
Wow.
Bit of a prodigy.
At the time. And what had happened was he hadn't yet debuted in first grade. So all these clubs are clamouring around. And Nathan Brown had done a handshake deal with him to sign at the Dragons. And it was big coin for a kid. So the Sharks, where he was at, wanted to debut him on that weekend to then sign him the next week, not knowing he'd done a handshake deal with Nathan Brown. But he's obviously doesn't want to share it because he wants to play this debut. I forget who they're playing, but Kobe and I are living over at France at the time, and he comes onto the field in the 54th minute, which I'll never forget. And the only way we can see the game, we're watching the live stats on the NRL. So we see 0 tackles, 0 runs, 54 minute, 1 run, Tony Caine. 1 tackle, Tony Caine. Two runs, 2 tackles. And then it stops. And I'm thinking the whole thing's frozen, but then all the other stats are moving. So you'd probably have to YouTube this, but he comes on and there's the red 40-metre stripe in front of him. At the time, Brett Kamali is the incumbent halfback screaming for the ball. And Tony in his head's got one voice, give it to the Australian halfback. The other voice is saying, how good would a 40-20 be on debut? So he steps out from dummy half, absolutely slams the ball. But Steve Price, who's the front row at the Warriors, dives into his knee.
I know
and
this photo.
his foot keeps coming up towards his knee.
Is that your brother? I didn't know
that was 4 minutes, and my hair stand up again. 4 minutes into his debut, right?
There's a photo. You can see
I know.
Yeah. So it's one of the most horrific knee injuries. So they said it was a whole back page in the paper. Danny Badiris knew he was coming through to be the next Danny Badiris, so to speak. He's reached out to him. So anyway, all those 8 clubs just desert him, right? But he's done a handshake deal with Nathan Brown, so this is going to test out the Dragons. Doctors are saying this kid will never play again. It was that bad. Everything was shot. But he's such a resilient, tough bugger. He would be on the wall on a Swiss ball all day, right? And Nathan Brown sends a contract to him. Handshake's a handshake, right? So the contract, despite being told he'll probably never play, comes through. So he wants to pay him back and will not get off this Swiss ball. Round 1 that next year against the Titans, he's the number 9.
The following year.
Wow.
Plays the whole year. And then this is now a 19-year-old on a mega contract, right? And we grew up on reduced for quick sale. Like we're a family who never had anything. It was always a fucking scrap, always, right? It was a chaotic upbringing. So he's got this opportunity he could literally retire and get that money. Nathan Brown is under the pump, right? So he walks in as a 19-year-old to Nathan Brown's office and says, Brownie, rips up the contract. Mate, I can't give any more. My knee's completely shot. I've done all I can for a whole year. Go and pay it on someone else to help you out, in a position you need. So he walked away from a massive contract, ripped it up, didn't take a cent, so that Nathan Brown could have a better chance the following year, but knowing that Nathan Brown didn't have to come through on the handshake, which he did.
Yeah.
But later on, years down the track, I was at the pub one day and having a beer with Ricky Stewart. Ricky Stewart was coaching at the Sharks. Mate, how's TC Tane going? Blah, 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 blah. I said, oh, mate, he's back training, blah, blah, blah. And then 2 weeks later, from nowhere, he's playing starting hooker for the Sharks under Ricky Stewart. And then again to Ricky, he says, oh, Rick, I'm shot, And so he never got to where he should have.
Yeah.
But rat's ass, it's life and plays on.
Yeah.
Jess, the other one. So Jess came through the Sharks as well. And he's one of those kids he came through with Sonny Bill Williams. And never in his life did his name not get called out for a team. He was just that gifted, whatever team you could go to the highest, his whole life he made every team. And I remember one day where, and I'm very proud of both of them because life is not all about rugby league. And I remember one day he made the Australian schoolboys team. And it was to tour England and France. So that's the rare year you want to make it.
How old is he at the time?
So Australian schoolboys, he's 18, 17, 18, right?
Yeah.
And they read him out. Number 3, Joel Caine. And we're all, as a family, like pumped, you know. And he goes, fuck. I said, mate, that was you. He goes, yeah. He goes, all my mates are going on a cruise, schoolies cruise ship. He goes, I just want to do that. And at the time, I didn't appreciate it, you know. And so then he goes to the Australian schoolboys, and he just wanted to have a good time, you know. And he was Liam Fulton and all those blokes are over there, and he actually got in trouble over there because they thought he was thieving something. He's the last person to ever thieve. And he come home drunk, and he comes into this dorm, and he's actually gone into the wrong dorm and fell asleep in this someone else's who's not even part of the team. And then they've thought he was in there stealing stuff. There was this whole bloody investigation, which is the furthest thing from him. But anyway, he comes back, plays first grade at 18, prodigy coming through. And his debut game is they're playing a Saturday or maybe a Saturday. It would have been a Saturday against the all-conquering Melbourne Storm, Smith, Cronk, Slater. Although that's his debut game, right? But on the Thursday night, Russell Crowe calls for this get-together session. And this is the famous session where they're all gone out to 5 a.m, pole-axed. Fletcher's in that side and he's bloody cutting Russell Crowe in half. And so he actually wakes up in his car on the Friday, pole-axed at about lunchtime in a car in Redfern, right? The next day playing his debut. So then I remember the next week, I'm driving him to the game and we're late for the team meeting. And I'm now going over curbs and, you know, trying to get him there on time. And he's got the shits. I said, sorry, mate, I'm trying to get you there as fast as I can get you there. He said, no, I haven't got the shits at you. He said, I don't want to play. I said, what do you mean? He said, I've got my mates going who are going to be in the stands on the piss. He said, I just want to be with them. You know, I don't want to be the player. And they'd all love to be doing what he's doing.
Mm.
And he said, I'm going to quit at the end of the year. So he's 18 or 19, plays 4 first-grade games. But his last game is against the Sharks where he came through the ranks. And for whatever reason, he wanted to jam them. So his very last game, and he said, no one knows this. This is going to be the last game. I want to carve the Sharks up and quit. He scored 2 tries, got man of the match, and never came back to rugby league ever again.
Just goes, I'm not playing. I'm out.
No interest and no regrets about doing it.
So you're comfortable with the decision now?
Very comfortable, and I'm proud of him for doing that. A lot of players push on for other people. It's a bloody hard game.
Yeah,
it's a brutal game. You need to be 100% into it.
Yeah,
but to have that presence of mind at such a young age to be able to sort of to call it, that's quite a mature decision. Usually you hear of 18-year-olds like distraught because they couldn't make it or they had to retire. Just being able to call it that early. Were you playing still when he was calling it, or where were you at?
I would have been playing probably in France or England or overseas. Certainly not against him. I never played against him.
Yeah.
But Chanel Harris-Tavita's doing it. You know? And people are sort of going, why would you throw that money away? Why would you? You can't judge someone until you're in their shoes.
Mm.
And it's not a sport that you can do half-hearted, that if you're not into it, and mate, I was sort of 50-50 whether Chanel should have kept playing if he's already sort of put it out there. But maybe in his head he's gone, hey, I can get 6 more weeks out of it. So I think it's very noble.
Seriously noble. Like I didn't even really think that was a thing that people did, to be honest.
No.
But now you go hearing stories like that.
Really good story. There's a podcast called The Bust, and it's about this guy, somebody Leaf, forget his name, but he won the attacking player nationally of the year, and there was a guy who won the defensive player of the year who came out and played 4 or 5 seasons in the NFL, had a bumper deal in front of him, and then the Twin Towers had just happened, had been knocked down,
Yep.
and I don't know this guy's name, I could find out, but this defensive guy, he decided to run away from the NFL to go and serve his country.
Ryan Leaf, we've got Dave.
Ryan Leaf. So he was
Dave.
the offensive guy, right, who they call him the biggest bust in NFL history as far as a draft pick goes. Very sad story. It's worth listening to. But this other guy just quit, ran away from mega dollars on the back of September 11 to go and represent his country.
Are you? Wow.
Yeah.
Did he not also? Did he die over there?
He died in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And he died in Afghanistan. You're 100% right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Apologies, I don't know his name. Yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah, no, I remember seeing, I've got the guy's like face in my mind.
Yeah.
That's a wild yarn.
That is a wild yarn. Good Lord.
So you played for the Dragons, a team that, got to be quite upfront here, we hate at Hello Sport.
Yeah.
Well, they're DMC, Dirty
Merger Club.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
Tigers as well.
Tigers
obviously.
also.
DMC, yeah.
But you were at a club you were at the Tigers as they went from being Balmain to being West. What was that experience like? Was it tumultuous?
Do you know my story to get to the Dragons first?
Yeah, go.
Oh, do you know the story?
No.
Okay, you'll like this story then. So I was the captain of the Group 3 under-16s team. Now, for context, this is a representative team which has Taree, Port Macquarie, Warhope. It wasn't a very powerful group team. So we'd play Group 1 who had Lismore, and we'd get pumped. We were a shitty little group team. And there was a kid on the bench who was sort of the backup half, if you like, right? And him and I get opportunity to go down to Cogra for an open trial for the Dragons. And I later learned that this kid froths on the Dragons, this kid from Taree. He loves the Dragons, wants to play for the Dragons. I like the Dragons. I was just desperate to play. So we get down there at this open trial, mishmashy short socks, and I just cracked under pressure. I wanted it too badly, and I played really, really bad, right? My mate from Taree has a fucking blinder, kills it, right? He's the best player there. Anyway, as I'm leaving, I'll never forget this. I haven't yet hit the road leaving Cogra, and I get a call. We'd love to sign you for 2 years. And I was so relieved. Because I'd played so badly, right? So that means that I'm going to move down in October, live with a family who I don't know, and away we go. So I come down, and they've rolled out the red carpet, expecting to see my mate there who's not there, right? I later find out he signs with another club. That's fair enough. So roll out the red carpet. And over time, this red carpet's getting shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter, to the point where it's January now. I've been there since October. They pull me aside, the late Maxie Ninnis, and they go, are you homesick at all? I said, no way. I'm loving this, absolutely loving it. They go, if we're brutally frank, we're actually thinking about sending you home. And I was like gutted, right? So they said, we're going to take you through these tapes tonight and just get some feedback. So they take us back to the trial and they play the trial tapes, right? And they press play. What do you make of this run? Oh, it's great, And they go through every sort of pass, tackle, tick, 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 tick. Outstanding. And after about half an hour showing me all this tape, they said, so you're not homesick? I said, not homesick. I love it. They said, well, how do we get you back to that? We want the boy we signed. How do we get you back to that? I said, that? They said, yeah, we need you to get back to that before this competition starts. I said, well, that's impossible. They said, why? I said, well, you've just shown me half an hour of a tape, my mate from Taree. Right? Yeah. They said, what? I said, you've just shown me half an hour of a tape from my mate from Taree. They go, who the fuck's that? I said, he's signed at the Knights, And this is a kid who only wants to play the Dragons.
Same?
Well, we're short. You probably could tell now, and even looking back at the time, little blokes, browny hair, mishmash trial. They said, well, who the fuck's this? And I said, me mate from Taree called Danny Badiris, right?
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah, true story. So they'd signed him, and then they said, right, well then fucking how do we fix you? I said, I'm not a hooker for starters, right? They said, so then they put me to fullback and away it went.
Wow.
Oh, my God.
And then later it turns out that he only wanted to play for the Dragons, Danny Badiris, gets a last-minute trial to go to the Knights, and then the rest is history.
There you go.
But you know what?
Be kidding.
But you know what? Sliding doors, he was a bit of a 5'8", so Knights really made him into a dummy half. If he doesn't go there, he's stuck in behind Nathan Brown and those types. Do we ever see the Danny Badiris that we ultimately saw?
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
That's a wild.
That's so
wild
funny, though.
Yeah.
Like, just how.
No, you're fucking Danny Veneers. Stop me. That's crazy. So the Tigers then.
Yeah, then you go to the Tigers.
Yeah. So the Tigers, I went there to Balmain,
Yep.
and I was nominee for Rookie of the Year. So not the Rookie of the Year, but I had a good season. And so now I'm negotiating with the Tigers about going there. and they've got 25 spots.
So you're Rookie of the Year almost with the Dragons.
No. 1998, they're merging.
Okay, gotcha.
Luke Patton's coming through. Blacklock's there. Dean Raper's there. Lee Murphy's there. It's unlikely I'm going to get a start. So I go, okay, I'm going to back myself. Steve Price, who became the coach later on, he's now the assistant at the Sharks. Him and I go together to the Tigers, Balmain Tigers, and have a good year, Rookie of the Year nominee. So in that sort of 4 or 5 bunch. So I'm assuming, the only reason I bring that up, I'm assuming now I'm going to lay down Mazaire for the squad next year. But then the merger is presented to me again. I'm thinking, well, I've had a good year. Can't keep running away from these situations. I'm going to take it on. So it comes down to the spot where they haven't offered me a contract. There's 25 spots. And if you ever get the chance to go through the exercise of the West Tigers' first ever squad, you can't possibly get a more motley crew. You physically can't. It is a mortal motley crew team, right?
I'm sure Dave will be trying to get
mate, honestly. I'll let you say that, mate. It is world class. So there's 24 of the 25. And I was on $60,000 and X amount per game the year before. So I've said to them, as being a nominee for Rookie of the Year, just give me an extra 20, 80 and 80, right? Martin Bullock, the then CEO, they said, nah, if we're brutally honest, mate, yes, you played a great year last year, different kettle of fish, different.
Are you managing yourself?
No, but I was having Steve Gillis, but I was having a big say in how we should go about it. And just because I passionately felt I deserved it.
Yeah.
So I just wanted 80 and 80, right? That's it. No bonuses, 80 and 80. And they said, look, if we're brutally honest, you've got to go backwards to go forwards. We've signed all these big players. Matt Sears is going to be, playing for Origin. So we've got him and all these other players. And so they said, how about we give you 60 and 60, right? But you're backing yourself thinking you're going to play the whole year. We think you're going to play 3 games this year, 3 games the next year, and then the third season will be you on your way. You'll only be 22 by then. I said, okay, well, what's that? And they said, well, the sums are 60 and 60 plus a 3 game. That's 69 plus 78. So you want 80 and 80. We're sort of meeting halfway, right? I said, okay, let's do it, right? So I trained my ass off. Led everything in training. And first trial, I got 5 minutes. Second trial, I got 20 minutes. Third trial, I got half a game, scored a hat-trick. Fourth trial, I got half a game, scored a hat-trick. Couldn't have done more. But I know I'm not going to get picked in this team.
Because of the deal they've made with you?
No, not relating to the deal. Okay. Not relating to the deal, but I just know that they're going to, first ever game for the club, they're going to go with what they know, the big stars, the big names.
Yeah, particularly for the new West Tigers.
For the new West Tigers. So they announced the team. Number 1, Joel Caine.
Oh.
My heart just dropped. Haven't yet played a full game. So then my head was off all week. And there was a lot of press sort of, who's this bloke? How does he get in front? There was a big back page on Matt Sears getting the spot, not getting the spot, and he was left out of the team altogether.
So the coverage around it was
yeah.
Damn.
But it was a gift for me because when I was going to the game, I had been so nervous all week. I remember picking up Mick Gillette, and I said, mate, I'm going to fucking brain it today. I've been so nervous all week. I know this is my time to shine. And we played the Broncos, first ever Tigers game. They go on to be the premiers that year.
It's 2000 Broncos, right?
There's not a player in their team who hasn't played Origin, right? 2000 Broncos.
Yeah.
I've come out 3 tries, man of the match, just gone berserk. And all the noise went quiet. But back to the contract, circling back on the contract, I wanted 80 and 80. So now they wanted to go, oh, do you want this 80 and 80 straight after that game? I said, no, we'll stay the course. So Hopper was on a similar deal, John Opawati, because he'd had a few misdemeanors, surprise. So he was getting like X amount per game. I don't think he had next to no sign-on. So him and I would be injured each week and we just had to play, we just had to get out there. And as it turned out, I played 50 of the 52 games those next 2 years.
Oh.
Yeah, so completely, it was just the ideal situation.
Yeah.
Perfect for you. How does that work with when you're a young kid who's stolen Matt Sears' spot? Essentially, everyone thinks he's going to get it. You swoop in, then have a blinder, play 50 or 52 games. Like, what's the relationship like with you and Matt Sears then at the time?
Great.
Like, is it great or is it awkward?
No. Well, I suppose it's case by case, but he's a really good fella. I know he's found trouble, but there's a really good person in Matty Sears, really sort of nice guy. And it's just, I later became him, I suppose, where, you stop doing the things that I had a really good year that year, got the point score and all those sorts of things, but the year finished early, and that became the Olympic year. So a young bloke, you've achieved that, party time, and I never ever got back to the physical condition that I did, and my career sort of petered out after that. But
why do you reckon that was?
I just think that I honestly think the Olympic year and such a long layoff was no good for me, and probably thinking I'd never drink back in those days, and then all of a sudden you're drinking, midweek and whatever else before the game. I remember one time I'd been out for a month, and Corey Pearson and I, we'd travel together, and it always ended, should we go to the Sylvania for one? We've never once been there for one. And I've had 6 schooners.
Before a game?
No, well, not before a game, because I don't know I'm playing.
Oh, right.
And Tim Sheens rings me, right? He says, mate, I was going to be playing that weekend, but it was like on a Sunday.
Yeah, okay.
And this was a Thursday.
Yeah.
And I was playing reserve grade, right? So no problem. And I'd had about 6 schooners, whereas Corey Pearson could do that and play, not a problem, and get man of the match.
He'd have 6 schooners.
He could.
And then take the field.
Yeah. He was just that. He could hold it. He was great, Steve Georgalis was another bloke who could do it. So anyway,
Jesus, Chris, 6 is a lot.
It's not nothing. It's
not nothing.
Yeah.
It's a lot on board.
Yeah. So I get this call from Tim Sheens, and he says, mate, we're bringing you back tomorrow. You're playing tomorrow. Someone's pulled out, and we need to fast track. I've been out for a month. Haven't played for a month. He says, mate, I've always thought you'd be a good dummy half. I said, sweet. So I said, PSA, shit, I'm playing tomorrow, right? Dummy half. I've never fucking done that in my life. So I get out there.
I've always thought you'd be a good dummy half.
Yeah.
Never played dummy half in my life.
So we get out there, and I'm putting my socks and shoes on. I know I'm way off the bit here. And Manly, we kick off, and Manly, Desi's too smart. Every single run's at me, right?
Just knows.
So you think I've played fullback and wing. I've made 6 tackles already, or 5. That's probably more than I'd make most years, and I've done it in one set. So then they kick deep. Winger brings it in. I'm not yet at dummy half. Runs it again. I'm still not yet at dummy half. Third play, Mark O'Neill is physically pushing me to dummy half. Likewise for the 4th play. 5th play, we kick to the sideline scrum. Get to the scrum. Interchange card is up. Caine's coming off. Oh. So 2 sets I lasted hooker for the fastest probably replacement in the history of the game.
Oh my god!
Oh my god! Yeah. What was that like? Were you happy to be off the field, or were you deflated?
I was just so embarrassed.
Yeah,
so embarrassed.
That's tough.
Yeah,
that's so funny. Like, Sheensy, what the fuck?
What are you doing?
Yeah,
did you think to question him at all, just to say when he made the decision to put you at halfback, go, listen, mate.
Nah.
Where's this come from?
Yeah.
This feels like it's come out of left field.
Yeah.
Did you feel like you were getting thrown to the wolves a little bit?
No, I believed it. I thought, I would be a good dummy half. I'm good. Until I made that second tackle in the first set, I thought, nah, this is not for me.
This is not for me.
Nah.
When did you go to Super League? Like, when was it? What was the decision, mate? Like,
I didn't go to Super League.
Really?
No.
Oh, Dave, you've got bloody Super League in here.
Oh, sorry. No, Dave's right. Super League, England, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Which Super League are you talking about?
The Super League.
Super
You
League.
blokes are too young for that.
The Super League. Yeah, the Super League, of course.
I was like
97.
Yeah, London Broncos.
Dave was about to get murdered.
Yeah. No, sorry. No, Dave's on fire. Yeah, no.
Super League, I'm like, with fucking London Broncos.
Hang on.
No, when I went then, because my form fell off a cliff, and the reason being, major sponsors of the West Tigers were a mob called Radisson Main. Pride of Lions, Emblem, Radisson's a familiar name, Main's a familiar name, and everyone thought it was this big company. But in the end, they completely fleeced me. These blokes sent me this close to being bankrupt.
Radisson Main did.
Radisson Main, major sponsor of the West Tigers.
Sorry, how's that happen?
So what happened was Ben Gallier and I Tigers had then moved to Concord, and we'd go for lunch up at Westfields, and there was no real sort of sandwich options or anything like that. And I said to Benny, mate, why don't we put a Subway in here? He says, yeah, great idea, and the girls can work in it, and away we go. So we went through Subway, paid our deposits, it was all set to go. And just by chance, that next week after we'd signed the documents with Subway, we're at a sponsors event. We get chatting to the sponsors, what are you doing with your money, boys? And, we've just bought this Subway franchise at Burwood. They go, oh, that's a good idea. Do you want our legal team to go over the documents for you? We said, oh, yeah, sure, great. So they go through it. The week later, they went through the documents. There's nothing wrong with it, boys. You're onto a winner there. And we go, oh, how good's this? And they said, but we could do a lot better with your money. So they've sucked us in with saying, it's all good, but we can do a lot better. We said, all right. So in the end, they got us to buy these houses down in Melbourne, put us on a private plane, down we go. And I had paid the lot, right? So they refinanced us, this place called Lakey Bank. You know, it was dodgy. I mean, I don't know if it's a dodgy bank, but I'd never heard of them. Refinanced everything, and I'd paid everything up in advance, right? And then what happens is I had gone to England and I was having this fight with these guys. They hadn't paid a cent. And Dad's saying, they have not paid a cent. They're sending me copies of checks that they've sent to the builder of $170,000, but they're fraudulent, fictitious checks, right? So I couldn't sleep, and I'm waiting up to 2 a.m. over there to try and contact them. Yeah. I haven't thrown them under the bus to ASIC because I'm thinking if I throw them under the bus, I'm not going to get any money back, you know. And then eventually I hear that they flee Australia.
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah. So but where they started to get followed was that I believe it remains the case, no sponsor to this day, I believe, has ever been the major front sponsor of a jersey for 2 clubs. They started to say they wanted to sponsor Canberra in addition to the West Tigers, right? But they're taking all these people's money, like widows and, Olympic swimmer, gym, so many people getting fleeced. And ASIC start to investigate them. And as I said, they go to jail for 8 years. Deloitte's later come back and say, 0 cents in the dollar coming back to you. So now I'm under the pump. I'm playing overseas for now Salford. And Salford have mucked up big time because turning up to training, a former teammate of mine is Kevin McGuinness, right? Remember Kevy McGuinness? Mm-hmm. And I said, Kevy, what are you doing here? Is one of the players leaving because there was a quota system, right? You can only have X amount of players. He said, no, I'm Irish, bros, right? I said, you're Irish, surname McGuinness, right? So Kevy starts playing for Salford and he's carving up. And then later on, the English Rugby League Board realised Kevin McGuinness, he's Aboriginal through and through, Australian through and through. He's no Irish. And, he's got the Irish surname, but he's not Irish, right?
Is that what he said?
Yeah. So Salford have to get rid of somebody immediately, just about immediately. So Sean Rutchison's there, Cliff Beverley's there, Mark Shipway's there. And I say, boys, are you guys thinking about going? Because they're not going to let Kevin McGuinness go Salford. He's this new star. So they're asking the boys who wants to go. And I know they can't go. But I've got to come up with $85,000 immediately. Otherwise, I'm going to go bankrupt to pay this builder again. Right? So I've already coughed up part of it, but I still owe $85,000.
And you want to get the house built?
Well, what's been built,
right?
And I've paid for it, but none of it's gone to them. So now I've got to pay for it twice.
Right.
And I said to Dad, look, I'm going to pay them twice and then I'll worry with the rest. But now I'm $85,000 short. I've got to come up with that. Otherwise, I'm going to go bankrupt, sell the house that we live in. Everything's going to go pear-shaped. So Salford agree. We'll let you go. And I've got them sort of over a barrel because they're going to get big fines. But I want to be paid out $85,000 because I've got another year to run. They said, okay, yep. But here's the deal. If we get relegated, all bets off. So we're playing this one game against Castleford.
Where are you on the table? Where are you on the table?
This is the second last game, right? Second last game. Whoever loses this game is going to get relegated. Reason being, both of us are playing the top teams the next week. So we're both going to get flogged next week. Not a question.
Your whole financial life is fucking on this game.
Yes.
Reminds me that's one of the gems with Adam Sandler. I'm stressed as fuck hearing this story.
I am stressed as fuck, right?
You always had I would have had a heart attack.
Oh, mate, and I'm playing fullback in this game, and it's rat's ass versus rat's ass, 2 shit teams. And I remember this kick from the sideline, which I did before half time. I've kicked this goal, and it was the ugliest looking kick you've ever seen. The ball's wobbling around, slides in just over the post. So we're leading like 24-6 or something, Okay. I'm okay.
Yeah.
You feeling better?
24-12.
Oh.
24-18.
Oh.
Right?
Oh, God.
24-22.
Oh, no.
Do the boys know about your situation?
No, probably. I don't remember, but probably. And the last 10 minutes of this game, it's them attacking our line the whole time, right? The whole time. And I look up, and they've got sort of like 5-on-2, and I'm officially now cooked. shift. We got no numbers. I'm scrambling across, doing the best I can. Bell's about to go. The winger drops it. And I still remember hitting the ground, breathing into the grass, right? At the jungle, the ground was called, the jungle. And I'm just like, oh, fuck, my life has been saved. Like, I know there's worse things that happen, but
I mean, like, that's a stressful
moment,
situation as well.
I did a Glenn Lazarus cartwheel, like just, I was that fucking happy.
Fucking
I'd love to see
schooners that night.
I want to find the footage of that game and just see the full time. Just to know what you're going through there. That's wild.
Yeah.
So how does the whole situation resolve then? You just have to go and pay the builder.
Well, then I was still had a massive debt.
Yeah.
But I wasn't bankrupt. So then I could pay the builder, get him off. And I ended up speaking to the bloke, and he's just a father of three doing his best. So it's not his fault. It's my fault ultimately. So I wanted to do the right thing, got that sorted, and then it was just, scrap away.
Build again. Start again sort of thing.
How many people did they rip off?
Oh, heaps.
Yeah.
If you look them up, Radisson Main, heaps. Heaps. The worst part is those who got inheritances, I suppose their partners have passed away and they've been paid out life insurance and things like that, and these arseholes took it, just con
Piece of
jobs.
shit,
Yeah.
Did your mate get dragged into it? The one you were going to get the subway with?
Oh, yes, but he lost like 70 grand. He never got to the stage of paying out a builder, so he lost like 70 grand. Worst thing is I come back from England, I'm down at Burwood, and I go into the Westfields, and obviously Subway did the due diligence to say it's a good idea to put it. Someone else has bought it there, and they were fucking 10 deep.
Oh.
So...
Could have been a Subway baron.
Yeah.
Oh, God,
Anyway.
that's sliding doors if ever it was. Fucking hell.
Well, so just like, we appreciate you coming in all your time. I guess just a bit more of like the current sort of world of sport. How do you see the Tigers as a former Tigers great yourself?
Oh, great.
Favourite son.
Favourite son. It must be a tough one to be a fan of. They are your team? Would they be your team?
Yeah. I think the biggest problem is the loose slips in the place. Dylan Edwards the other week pulled out. No one had a clue. Cooper Cronk played in that grand final. No one had a clue. Jake Friend played in that grand final. No one had a clue whether they were playing or they weren't. West Tigers, it just gets out. Everything gets out. If I was Sheensy's coming back, of course, which I'm a little bit torn on it. I don't know. Maybe it is.
I feel like I heard you say something because Benji's a mate of yours.
Yeah.
And I think you were sort of saying that it does seem like a curious decision to bring him back.
I think so. Personally, I do. I just think maybe we're underestimating the value of those good assistant coaches. Benji and Robbie, in saying that, they're winners. They'll do all they can. But I don't know. I wish them all. I hope to be proven wrong. If there's one thing I want to be proven wrong. But Sheensy was coaching over in the Super League, lost his job over there, then went to the second tier. Don't know. I don't know.
It's an interesting place to be. On the loose lips, do you think any of that has to do with the fact that it's essentially two clubs that are one club? Is there kind of conflicting interests there that are constantly being brought to the
DMGs?
DMCs.
Yeah. Seriously, we are 22 years into the DMC, right? 22 years. And people still get the shits if you say the Dragons are playing someone. It's St George Illawarra.
Yeah.
Or if you say the Tigers are someone, it's West Tigers, And it's 22 years down the track and we're still not playing out of the one ground.
Yeah.
Just rip the Band-Aid off. Just I came through the Tigers faction and it's beautiful, Leichhardt Oval. But honestly, just get your asses out to Campbelltown.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we say. It's a massive growth area. Yeah. West is based out there. They've got most of the power in the club anyway, don't they?
We're frigging around, and we've been frigging around forever. Not 50-50, because that's still, Arthur or Martha. Get out there, play 2 games a year, which have to be Sunday afternoons at Leichhardt, and just get amongst it, it's just...
It seems very odd. Have you been through the new Centre of Excellence they've got?
No.
They've been trumping it about it in the paper. 78 million, mate. Looks very...
78 million.
78 million, apparently.
But in what world do you get that money back? How do we...
Yeah.
How do you honestly...
That's a lot of money. 78 million.
Mate, you guys haven't even spent that here at Hello Sport HQ.
We're a couple short, but call it 76.
But honestly, for a freak, it's a game of rugby league.
Yeah, it does.
$78 million.
It does seem like a lot.
It seems like
It
an
seems
awful
like
lot.
quite a lot, doesn't it? For
A couple of pools and...
well, yeah. What's required to be great at rugby league? I don't know. Like, is it hot and cold plunge pools and fucking
knows?
infrared saunas? And
If we've got 78 million, right, go and buy 50 million worth of real estate.
Seriously.
You can have as many
Yeah.
a centre of excellence as you like down the track.
It's a good point. Does it make you sad seeing the old club, the old sort of West Tigers clubhouse on Victoria Road so decrepit?
Oh, yeah.
Did you have some wild nights in there?
Yeah, great nights.
Yeah.
Great nights out there. There's a couple of stories I'd love to tell, but they're probably a bit too risky. I'll tell you one story. So we got to this stage where we go to a Monday, right? We go and get on the sauce on a Monday. And we end up going to another pub. We'd left a few pubs, went to another pub. And one of the boys gets kicked out. And I can't name him and I can't name the reason why because it was friggin' bad, right? So he gets kicked out and we get dragged into Stephen Noyce's office and the three of us, myself, Stephen Crouch, and the third person who caused all this, we've been told that, we're going to pay a fine and we're not to play for a month, right? Well, sorry, I'm getting a fine, he's getting a fine, and the player who is the perpetrator is getting a month off. So what happens is when we're being interviewed by the CEO, he said, "What'd you do? Blah, 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 blah." And this bloke said, he was pissed and he pinched a cop on the tush, right? But that wasn't even the incident. That had happened at another pub, right? That happened at another pub. So he goes, we didn't even know about that. So now we've got to get this player because it gets to this journo. This journo says if this player's not stood down for a month, this is going everywhere, right? So how are we going to do this? So what happens is we go, okay, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to mark insert blanks, right? And I'm going to let him around the outside and I'm going to half tackle him and he's going to do his shoulder, right? So we do that. And then Andrew Leeds goes over to the player and says, "Oh, mate, how's it there? What about there?" "No, it's just a sting of your sweet," right? So he's not ruled out. In the end, happens again, does a hamstring, and the player in the rugby league magazine's out for a month, But, great times there. Great times.
far out.
Great times.
That's ridiculous.
Good Lord.
Isn't it?
There's a lot you don't know.
No, mate, there's so much you don't know with rugby league. It's so funny,
rugby
just the
league.
things that are happening right in front of your face, and we got no idea at all.
No idea
gotta
whatsoever. What's your lay of the land for this competition? Obviously, Penrith are heavy favourites, but
Yeah,
you got a smoky for us?
And I also just want to say now, like, I've got a great respect for Joel's rugby league now because he tipped the Titans against Manly yesterday, which I wouldn't have seen coming.
No, you want to tip this time of year. Teams who are out of the running on the road, you want to tip against them. That was the case. As soon as the Roosters won, Manly were done. So I thought the Titans were a good bet in the end. But
I couldn't have done it though.
you know what?
No, we
myself
can't
too.
tip against
If
the
you wanted a
Saints.
roughie, I actually think the roughie is. I think the Panthers will miss the grand final.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Spicy.
Missed the grand final.
Yeah. I think if they make the grand final, they'll win it. Right? They'll absolutely win it. But the reason I say that is week one of the finals, see, Cleary got sent off in that game against Parramatta. So he essentially didn't play that game. That was at the start of the game. So week one of the finals, Cleary and Luai will have played one game in 6 or 7 weeks, right? So vulnerable. If they win that game, they then get another 2 weeks off. And you're going to meet a hot team coming in a prelim. It might be a Roosters, might be, who knows? So I feel like if they're going to get beat, it's going to be in that week one or week two. If they survive those 2 games, they go to the grand final and they absolutely win. So I'd be looking at those grand final Quinellas, Sands, Panthers.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that.
I like that a lot.
Okay, and if it's not Panthers to win it, who wins it?
Jeez. Maybe the Sharks.
Sharks.
Could
The
you
Seals.
imagine? Could you imagine
I'd
Fitzgibbon goes there first season?
Yeah.
Midas
I don't mind
touch, wins
Could.
a comp.
Nico Hines.
Could. Yeah. The Cowboys are still in the game too. I'd forgive them that SCG run. And then, of course, South and
South with
Roosters
Trell.
coming through.
Yeah.
How did you have the Cowboys going this year? Because I had them coming dead last. I know I don't fucking know a thing. Like, that's pretty well established. But for a team I thought was going to come dead last to be running third or second.
Second, I think.
Second.
Oh, it's crazy, isn't it?
It's not, it's not a great indictment on myself, is it?
Your rugby league knowledge.
No, I don't remember where I had them, but I've been a big pro, Todd Payton the whole time. So, but nothing like this. I certainly didn't tip him top 4.
Todd Payton looks like a bit of a sort of a villain in a cartoon movie, we reckon.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's just got like that bit about him, that eyes, that look, the goatee.
Yeah.
He's done very, very well.
Yeah. Hires a bloke who looks exactly like him too, Dean Young. I like that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Just to double down.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
an
love
understudy.
that.
Yeah.
What do you think Manly's chances of winning the Common 23 are, realistically? Full strength.
Full strength premiers. What do we think?
I just love that Olakuwa too, eh?
Yeah, he's good.
Tommy Turbo. If you had him this year, you'd be in the game.
See? We do know what we're talking about.
Yeah, there we go. We're spot on.
13
Mate,
plus.
We don't want to 13 plus, exactly.
He knows it.
exactly. We don't want to take any more of your time, mate, but thank you very much for coming in.
No
Really
worries,
appreciate it. That's about it, really. The run home.
Yep.
Joel and Fletch, SEN.
That's it.
Sportsbet. Look, we are Neds affiliated, but we are happy to acknowledge your greatness on Sportsbet as well.
Mate, I appreciate that, boys. You're flying, by the way, and these chairs are very comfortable.
Very comfy.
We like
Good.
that.
We just want you to be comfortable. Thanks,
Yeah.
mate. Appreciate it.
Left side, right side, perfect combo. Well done, boys.
Thank you very much, mate. Cheers.
Could you two just not talk anymore?